Hey everyone, welcome back to the All Music Matters in That podcast. I'm your host, Brian. Today I welcome a very special guest. We will welcome Mr. Michael Lewis. How you doing today, brother?
Good. How are you, Brian?
Not too bad. And a special shout out to Kevin Dotson, who actually gave you a shout out when I interviewed him not too long ago from the Madrigal Project. So, I guess, how'd you guys meet? And I guess, did he kind of look you out? Because I know you've done like production and other sort of stuff too.
Yeah, Kevin and I met through a mutual friend. Primarily, he had an engineer, John Van Hoot, engineered the Madrigal Project album, and I think they were wanting some guitar parts, and John said, "Hey, there's a guy locally that you should connect with who's worked with all kinds of major prog artists," and so anyways, they ended up getting in touch with me, and yeah, that's how we met, and we hit it off, and ended up working on their project. It was great. It was a lot of fun. And Kevin's a great guy.
He is. I would have to admit, he's definitely a talker. So yeah. God bless the man, though. So it's good to see he's actually kicking some ass out there, making that new album too. So
yeah,
so it's been a cherry on social media because I know he's been begging me. And you can see, like, for the love of God, buy the album, that whole deal. So he was a great guy. So, but thank you so much for what you're doing and actually helping him out there too. So really does mean a lot. And just fill in the audience, I guess. So which part of the world are you hailing from?
I am in North Idaho.
Close to Boise, or is that very further south? I'm not too familiar with Idaho, to be honest.
Yeah, we were about 8 hours north of Boise, about 30 minutes east of Spokane, Washington, home of the Gonzaga Bulldogs. We are about 5 hours east of Seattle. Excuse me. Part of the Pacific Northwest. It's a beautiful part of the country up here. And it's cold and snowy this time of year. There's no snow in our yard, but our mountains are quite snow covered, and the ski resorts are reporting one of the best ski starts to the ski seasons in years. So that's what's happening over here right now, which is cool.
That's good to hear. And I know that's where Kevin was out of Spokane there. And how far are you from the Canadian border? Are you just maybe an hour or so?
We're probably hour and a half to 2 hours south of the Canadian border.
All right, that's all good. And to actually fill in the audience, Mr. Lewis here actually has an impressive resume, and former Nashville producer, a session musician. I guess you have your own studio, the Sawmill Studios, which I'm assuming that's what it is behind you right there. Mm-hmm. And I guess two of your bands, the Inventioning band. I'm hoping I'm saying that right. So
Inventioning,
okay, Inventioning band, and One Street Over. One of which, One Street Over actually got into the AGM Hall of Fame in 2022. So it's actually quite an impressive resume you got there.
Thank you.
Yeah. We also got to elaborate more on that here in just a little bit here too. So, Michael, welcome to my podcast right here, and thank you so much for actually making Kevin's dream come true of coming on here too. So it's going to be interesting. So if you know how the story goes, I'm going to actually ask you some questions, and let's get to know you more, both as the individual, but also as the musician as well here too. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So we'll start here at the beginning here too. So who are you? And I guess, how did you become a musician?
My title would be, I'm a producer, multi-instrumentalist. I'm a studio mixing and mastering engineer. I have a 39-year history as a studio owner, former Nashville session player. I'm an artist. I'm a music director for several bands, as you mentioned, One Street Over, the Inventioning Band, and we have a new band now. It's called Legends of Yacht. So that's something that we've been working on this last year and will be launched next year. And how did I get started? Boy, my musical background is probably as far back as I can remember. I mean, I can show you a picture of being a toddler with a little plastic guitar. So I was kind of always into music, and I always wanted to be a musician. as far as I can remember. I got my first real guitar when I was 5 years old, and just strummed that thing to death, and until I finally got lessons at age 11, and immediately joined a church folk group when I was 11 years old. Started gigging when I was 16, and I studied music starting in junior high school, through high school, and into college. So, yeah, just kind of, this was very into it from a very young age. So,
I was gonna say you didn't come out of the womb playing the guitar, so that'd be nice. So, I guess if you've always lived in Idaho, or I guess are you just kind of chilled all along the West Coast and then kind of jumped around between like Nashville and other parts of the states?
I started out in the Bay Area, California, and then I got married when I was 20, and we moved to Oregon and started our family there. Then we moved up to Portland, Oregon. I actually started my first studio in 1985 in Southern Oregon, and then we moved to Portland, Oregon, and opened a studio room in downtown Portland for a while. And then I moved out to Nashville, was 12 years out in Nashville, then moved back here to the Pacific Northwest, was in Spokane for a while, and then ended up here in Coeur d'Alene, which is really where we wanted to be. So, yeah, we've kind of lived all over the place, really.
Yeah. I guess the Bay Area, was that in around like San Diego, San Francisco, mainly those big cities in California?
San Francisco Bay Area. So we were from the South Bay area of San Jose, which is, Techville. That's IT capital of the world, probably. Silicon Valley is what it's known for. So,
Actually, I was going to ask, like, were you in around the time, I guess, when like the more heavier metal was kind of taking off in the Bay Area?
no, I was there during the yacht rock era. So I was playing the Doobie Brothers type of stuff, 1981, in the Bay Area. So that was West Coast music. Yeah, I was into Toto and America, and I mean, you can name all those West Coast bands: Steely Dan, Michael McDonald, Kenny Loggins. Those were all my favorite artists early on, and so now we're kind of coming full circle with that, with our band called The Legends of Yacht, which that's exactly what we're going to be playing. It's kind of weird because it's like, yeah, wasn't I playing this like 40 years ago?
It came full circle, I guess, as you said earlier. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of cool, though.
That's pretty cool. Actually, as soon as you said America, I guess, were you real big into playing Ventura Highway?
Play Ventura Highway. Actually, on my Reverbnation page, we have a recording of Tin Man that we did, that we had released on an early album. We'll do a remix and re-release of it soon. So,
have you always played guitar, or have you kind of like jumped around between like bass and maybe tried some drums every now and again?
My first instrument was the couch, which I played like a keyboard when I was real small. But yeah, guitar was my first instrument. And then at the church where I was in the folk group playing guitar, they really needed somebody to play bass. And they said, you know what? I think somebody's got a bass and a bass amp in one of the closets in the church. And one day we got a key and started opening doors, and sure enough, there it was. And so I took it home and taught myself how to play bass. And then I had a friend who said, hey man, I've got a couple of keyboards and I'm going to be traveling for X amount of months, and I need some place to put them. And this is, kind of store them with you. I'm like, no, I'd hate that. So yeah, I'm like, yeah. So I had it was a Farfisa electric piano and an ARP Odyssey keyboard, ARP Odyssey synthesizer. And so I sat down and I taught myself how to play keyboards from guitar. And then I learned how to program synthesizers, sitting there screwing around with the ARP Odyssey all day. So I ended up playing keyboards. And so, yeah, now I've done literally hundreds of sessions on bass, and keyboards, acoustic piano, Hammond B3. I actually own two Hammonds, so which are, they're my third and my fourth Hammonds now that I've had. I have a 59 Hammond RT3, which is, it's the same thing as a Hammond B3, but in a bigger cabinet. And then I have an A100, which is also the same thing as a B3, but again, a different cabinet, has some speakers built in. But so I love to play Hammond organ. I had a acoustic piano for a lot of years and did all kinds of sessions on acoustic piano too.
He's doing it all. I was gonna say this is almost like a Bad Company Shooting Star, except it has more of a happier ending. So
yeah, yeah. So I love playing guitar, but I love playing the other instruments too, and have really enjoyed doing sessions on those. So I have a lot of recordings with playing those different instruments as well.
That's pretty cool. So I guess jumping into the music here too. I guess I imagine it's going to be an extensive history in terms of the amount of bands you played here too. So I guess you're in the Bay Area first, and then you work your way up into Portland, Oregon. I guess was that when you formed your first band?
No. Let's see. Southern Oregon. I had a band in Southern Oregon, and then had another band in the Portland area, and we recorded an album that is on iTunes now. It's called River of God, instrumental jazz album. So I had some great guys with me from the Pacific Northwest on that project. Then I went out to Nashville, and I played in a number of bands. I played in some all black funk bands. Played in a 23-piece big band for 10 years. Mostly guitar, but also did some dates on bass for the big band as well. Played with country artists and pop artists and you name it. So yeah.
You'd be like, we're not worthy. No deal. So yes. As you were some of the legendary artists, because I was checking out your YouTube channel and I saw I mentioned legendary artists. I'm curious, who'd you all play with?
Well, the most legendary artists that I've worked with, Mary Wilson of the Supremes, the late Mary Wilson, rest in peace. John Anderson of Yes, of course, the Rock and Roll Hall of Famer, inducted in 2017. Legendary violinist Jean-Luc Ponty, my dear friend, who he played on the Inventioning project stuff, and Phil Keaggy. I don't know if you know who he is, world-renowned Christian guitarist.
Which band was he part
of? Well, he's mostly known by his name, Phil Keaggy. Glass Harp was his band. He also played with the Second Chapter of Acts. And let's see, I toured with an artist on Curb Records by the name of Jamie Slocum, another one, rest in peace, on there. He was nominated for New Artist of the Year for the Dove Awards, so Christian artist there. A couple years, and played on one of his albums. And yeah, I think those are the main ones that I can think of.
The list could go on, but we'd be here all day. So I guess what made you want to move to Nashville? Was it just a new job opportunity in terms of the music-wise?
I was touring as a solo artist. I was actually touring churches, doing solo Christian shows. And I booked a tour that went through Nashville and then up, we went all the way up to Minnesota and back. And when I was out in Nashville, we had like a 1 month layover in the tour in Nashville, and I had some contacts there. And so when I got to town, the phone started ringing, like, hey, Michael, can you play on this project? And hey, we need somebody to produce some songs. And I mean, I had all this work. I mean, just like landing in my lap. And I thought, man, I thought, this is crazy. I mean, with this much work here, it's like we have to move there. So it was kind of a no-brainer. So then we went out and just I got a position at a studio on Music Row. So I started producing there, got a client base, and then I opened my own studio room and stayed busy. Got the position with the Radio Days big band, playing with them, and yeah, so it was great. Really enjoyed the music community there, and playing with all kinds of great players. In fact, I still work with a lot of the players that I had connected with out there. We still do sessions together. I was just on the phone with this last week with the drummer that I've worked with for over 20 years. He toured with Peter Frampton, and he was Shania Twain's first drummer. And let's see what else he did. Vince Gill, and he's toured with all kinds of major people. And we still do sessions together, and then worked with a number of great bass players and horn players, guys from Michael McDonald bands were working on a project with me recently. And yeah, and so we do, well, not Skype, I guess we were doing Zoom sessions. We did some horn sessions recently with whole horn sections where all the horn players there in Nashville, they're all grouped in a room, and then I'm zooming over from here producing. And then we had a horn arranger who's Joe Bonamassa's bass player, did the horn arrangements for us on some of those songs. And so he's zooming from like France, they're on tour over there, and I'm zooming from here, and then we're doing the session in Nashville. So, and that was one of the reasons that we were able to move to North Idaho, is because it's like, man, we were doing so much online session work. It's like, wow, I could do this anywhere. And I'm not really great with heat. And so that was probably the number one reason that we left Nashville, is like, every August, like I just couldn't sleep. It was just too hot. You go to bed at night and you fall asleep, and as soon as your air conditioner shut off, you wake up, whoa, what's going on, man? It's just too hot. So, but I do miss the music community there, and but it's great that I still have all those friends and we're still working together. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It sounded like a lot of fun too. Actually, I was picturing just holding the family here like this the whole time while you're sleeping too.
Yeah, so definitely have the fan on full time out there.
But we're not keeping it at 1 right there. We're cranking that up to 4, baby. So yeah.
Yeah, in
actually,
fact,
the way I kind of described like the horn section too, it was almost like Frank Sinatra or Chicago sort of setup too. So that's interesting. So because outside of the heat too, I guess. Or what were we gonna say?
I had an invitation to move down to Houston a few years ago. There was a band down there that offered me a position. I went down there and we played some shows together, and I stayed for a little while. And I really enjoyed my time there. But I'm like, there's no way I could survive the heat in this town. But it's a cool town, lots of great people there, lots of great musicians there as well. It's a great music town.
I was actually in Austin not too long ago, and they're now claiming credit to be the music capital of the world. So I think they're kind of stealing Nashville's thunder now. So,
well, I think they've always had the title of one of the top live music towns in the world. So, little different vibe. Every town has its own vibe, right? Chicago or New Orleans, Memphis, known for the blues there, or, even St. Louis has its own vibe. New York City has its own thing. And then you have all the West Coast thing, of course, primarily Los Angeles. And then Seattle's kind of developed a character, particularly from the 90s. They really kind of came together, and you had all the grunge rock and the, Dave Matthews Band, but then you had Nirvana and what's some of the other bands up there? I can't even think of what they are right now. But
well, some of them from the grunge scene. I know Soundgarden was one, and then Alice in Chains. So
yeah,
no kind of sticking it around grunge, but I mean, that's what I grew up on since I'm a 90s kid. So,
Okay.
so actually, I had to rely on my dad to kind of fill me in on some of the progressive and then mostly classic rock. He's always been a 60s and 70s guy, maybe some 80s. He doesn't really go too heavy with the 80s because I know that's when they started really going loud and fast. So, but
Yeah, let's see. I played on of course, power pop was a primary genre of the 90s. And there's a power pop artist based out of Seattle. It's called Ransom and the Subset. And they've done a couple albums. And I played on the first one, and then they also played on this last one, which the opening song started out with Jay Graydon on guitar. And so they had a couple major names on there that was really cool. But it was power pop stuff, which I like that too. I like Gin Blossoms and oh gosh, what's the name of the other? Slips me. But yeah, some of that 90s power pop stuff's really cool.
I don't know if you mentioned about this yet, but the Inventioning band and I guess One Street Over, I guess, was this both your ideas or I guess who approached you to form these groups?
Inventioning band was something I started with John Anderson and Jean-Luc Ponty. If we go back to 2013, I produced for John Anderson for about 7 years, starting in 2007. And it was about 2013 I was working on a project for John. And then he went to Iceland and played, did a tour up there, and he played, I don't know what band it was, some band or orchestra, and he came back, he's like, oh wow, that was a really great experience. He had been, he of course was the lead singer of Yes up till 2008, and I don't know if you know much of the history there, but he got sick. He had a near-death illness that took him out for about a year, and so after that, he started touring as a solo artist and was doing mostly solo shows for a number of years. And then there was a lot of talk about inducting Yes into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So in 2013, there was also, again, it was coming up that Yes might get nominated for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I said, John, I said, we should go out with a band. Of course, selfishly thinking, hey, why don't we go out and be a band and I'll be the guitarist, right? So,
oh, you jerk. Anyway,
so and I had a connection with Jean-Luc Ponty's manager, and I had Jean-Luc Ponty working on some of the stuff that I was working on for John, and so we started putting this whole thing together, and they said, yeah, let's do a band. So in early 2014, I was actually going to be the music director of this new band, and we started putting it all together, and we started poring over names, which was a arduous process, shall we say. And then we came up with, and I think the Inventioning band name was really John's idea. And then we did, we put the band together, and I actually, I owned all the assets for the Inventioning band. And then the manager said, oh, we're going to just do this as the Anderson Ponty band. And so we're not going to have you go with us. Like, okay. So, but I still owned all the assets for the Inventioning band. And then I had all these recordings, and I said, you know what? We're going to continue to be the Inventioning band. My daughter, Bridget, who is the lead vocalist for One Street Over, and now the Inventioning band, and she will be the lead vocalist also for Legends of Yacht. She had sung all the original demos for the stuff I was doing for John, and so it was kind of like, it was a no-brainer to just have her step into that role and just keep doing what she was doing, right? So we started releasing stuff as the Inventioning band, and and then of course some people we released in 2021, which actually was something we had started back in like 2011. I think it was 10 years in the making or something like that, and that had John Anderson and that had Jean-Luc Ponty on it, as I said before. And then we also got Oliver Wakeman, which is Rick Wakeman's son. Rick Wakeman was the original keyboardist for the band Yes. So his son Oliver played on that. And of course, that's how we ended up, when I was working on Kevin Dodson's project, I said, hey, man, I said, he was doing some harpsichord stuff. And I said, I said, who's a really killer harpsichordist is Oliver Wakeman. I said, let me talk to him and see if we can get him on this project. And Oliver was like, oh, yeah. So, Oliver started working with Kevin. They hit it off, and they ended up doing all kinds of stuff on there, which was great. So I forget what the original question was, but
it was more so about the music, and I guess it was more just about the Inventioning band and One Street Over, but he got that one. So
yeah.
First off, congratulations there, and also hats off to your girl as well there too. So, and actually, it was coming back to me too in terms of like what Kevin was talking about when he was putting the Magical project together in his newest album. So, but I know he mentioned about Billy Sherwood a good bit here too, but he was the bassist for Yes, right?
Yes, correct. In fact, he is the current bassist for Yes. So he was a protege of Chris Squire, the late great Chris Squire. And I forget how, I don't remember how Billy and I met, but somehow, I've had a connection with him for a lot of years. And so I told Kevin, I said, hey, man, let's see if we can get Billy to play on one of the songs. And I think he ended up playing on, I don't know how many he played on, 2 or 3, I guess. But yeah, it was great to have him on that project as well.
Something like that. I always feel bad because my knowledge of Yes is pretty limited. Because the first time I actually heard about him was actually from the video game Rock Band.
Okay.
They're of course playing their hit song Roundabout. So I mean,
right.
That's the one I heard. I just know the drums were killer on that one, but man, it was a pain in the rear end. So, unfortunately, not playing Billy Sherwood's parts, more doing Al Wakeman's parts too. So.
Oh yeah.
So I would say I think Kevin actually gave me more of a history lesson about Yes and actually how they were inducted. So, but I respect them and huge props to them for getting to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So,
yeah, I don't know how much he told you about Yes, but of course, from the '60s, 50-year history. Now the original bassist Chris Squire passed away in 2015, and then Alan White passed away a few years ago. So they're down to, John Anderson. Rick Wakeman is still out touring. Steve Howe, the original guitarist, is still the guitarist in Yes now. And so some of the guys, I'm not even sure. I think they got like Jeff Downs on keyboards. And so Jeff had done some early stuff for Yes, and then they brought him back and so on. So everybody kind of has pretty much more or less, except for the new drummer now, everybody has a connection somehow to the earlier versions of Yes, and trying to keep the tradition. But they've been going for 55 years or something like that. I mean, just crazy, and all that stuff, if you or particularly any younger musician, man, go check out some of that early stuff. It's just amazing. Some of my favorite stuff that they did, of course, you've got Close to the Edge, which is an epic work, or of course the big hit for them early on was Fragile. And then you have my mind's going blank, but hello, oh, I'll think.
Yeah, but just yelling at us right now.
So. Yeah, Going for the One was a really great album. I had John Anderson's favorite song on there, which is Awaken, which is just an amazing piece of music. It's like 20 minutes long, and it is a complete adventure. So, yeah, I know that people have told you that Taylor Swift was the first one to do a song over 10 minutes, but no, we've been doing that for a long time.
I mean, I would tell you, it's always a progressive sort of style of music who would do songs over 10 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So
You have like Tales from Topographic Oceans, the early Yes project. It was a double album and it was 4 songs. 4 20-minute songs, one song per side of vinyl. So yeah, that's the way we did it back then.
ambition. So yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the one that always came to mind, even though it's not Yes, but it was Jethro Tull, the whole Baker Street Muse. So
Love Jethro Tull stuff. Yeah.
I think favorite is definitely the Minstrel in the Gallery. It's a great choice. So jumping to the hard topic of COVID here too. So I guess how bad was COVID for you personally in terms of music and then family wise? And if you want to talk anything else about music, go ahead.
Yeah. 2020 was a tough year for us. 2019, we were riding a lot of momentum. We were playing a lot of shows. We were doing really well. And then 2020, definitely, early part of 2020, we were still playing shows, and then we got slammed, all the cancellations and everything. We were slated for cruise dates. It all got canceled. Yeah, we played probably less than half of what we'd normally play. So that was pretty tough. And then we went through, multiple rounds of illnesses as well. And so, yeah, it was difficult. It was a setback in a lot of ways. And, and then ever since then, the economic changes that have come with, the recent policies in recent years have just been devastating to us. I mean, just, we're having to work twice as hard to just make ends meet. So we're hoping things will get better.
Oh no. So yeah, I knew how tough it was here too. And actually, what's funny is I actually had a relative who actually worked in like crisis management, and the joke was the day you retire is the day the world's going to go to shit. And this relative happened to retire in 2020, so you can imagine what happened next. So, in which case, it was a double whammy. So,
his own prophecy.
I mean, in a manner of speaking. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you were already living in Idaho at the time COVID hit, right?
Correct. Yeah, we moved here in 2016. Yeah, it was 2016.
Because how big is your town, first off? Because outside of Boise, I don't know too many other cities or big towns in Idaho.
Boy, I don't even know what the numbers are here. It's not as big as Spokane. It's smaller than that, though it gets a lot bigger in the summer. There's a lot of people that have summer homes here and then travel somewhere else warmer for the winter because we have, pretty decent winters here. But I think you have really good, being a skier, I call a snowy winter a good winter. So I think you have good winters there in Pittsburgh, don't you?
Not recently, or not so much during like December or November. Actually, it snowed a little bit last week, so I had a little bit of a flurry. I think in other parts of Pennsylvania, I think it got like 8 to 10 inches somewhere. So,
oh wow,
so
yeah.
In and around the Pittsburgh area, it's not been as much, and sometimes maybe during like February, March of next year, like when we're treading towards spring, you'd be like, nope, we're going to hit you with one more one, and it's a winter wonderland out there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
but
So
got to deal with the roads and skidding and all that stuff. So fun stuff.
And we've had a big influx of people over the last 4 years. I think, the proliferation of people doing remote work has opened up people's ability to move just about anywhere. And so our population has exploded. We got neighborhoods booming all over the place. Housing prices are ridiculous, off the charts. And so, and everybody's like, where did all this traffic come from? It's like, well, everybody moved here. So
Everybody wanted to live the life of a hermit in a way. So
Yeah.
yeah. But I know you mentioned earlier about illnesses. I guess did you have any brushes with COVID, or do you not? You weren't too sure if it was COVID?
No, I actually think we got COVID before anybody really knew what it was because um, we were ski teaching, and it's pretty typical for ski teachers to get sick because we're around so many people, and particularly like kids who are just like what do they call what is that word they use? We're talking about kids always spreading illnesses all the time. I can't think of the phrase, but um, so anything that's spreading through society, we usually get it pretty early, and so we were sick in like February of 2020, I think it was, and it was like, wow, this is a nasty illness. What is this, and where did it come from? And then we find out later, oh, that's what it was. And then we got sick several other times, and my wife has suffered from COVID long haulers for a lot of years, and yeah, so it was pretty. We've had a number of difficult hits with it. Enjoyed being healthy the last few years, so I can't complain too much.
That's good to hear. I know it's probably a rough road, but it's good to see you are doing well there, mate. So good to have you along here for the ride.
Yeah, we had another bout of it in 2022. We were doing cruises. We were actually doing cruises on the Puget Sound, and we were on one ship, and you could hear everybody coughing, and it's like, oh boy, this is not good. And sure enough, we got it, and we ended up having to cancel shows because of that. So
WTF, mate. So yeah. Actually, yeah, here's a funny one for you. I actually went, like say, 2 or 3/4 of a year without getting COVID because me and my family, we played it safe. And sure enough, we actually go to Nashville and bar hop on Broadway, and you can probably guess what happens.
oh man, yeah. So I remember the term typhoid Marys. That's what those, you call the kids typhoid Marys because they they catch everything and then they spread it. So
I was trying to figure out another term, but I think I'll stick with yours. I think yours better. So, all right. But in all seriousness, good to see you are doing well there, mate. So
yeah.
I guess how has the music scene been? I don't know if you've done any tours recently.
Yeah, we've done pretty well this year. I mean, I think we're on track to do about 80 shows for this year. That's 80. I didn't say that very well. 80 shows. And we were slated to probably be doing more like 100 or more. And so we have had a lot of cancellations. We had a number of cruise cancellations, and then there was one regular gig that got canceled on us as well. And they say that industry-wide concert attendance is down 30%. So I think we feel really grateful that we've been able to do as many shows as we've done. So we can't complain. If you're doing 70, 80 shows a year, and it's like, okay, we're doing okay.
We're doing something right. So,
yeah, but I know that industry-wide, it's been difficult, but we're doing okay.
That's actually kind of surprising because I actually went to an Iron Maiden concert not so long ago, and I'd say it's PPG Paints. That's where they're actually holding it's actually a big arena, hockey rink, I should say.
Okay.
And I'd say that was Back to the Bone, even though they start off with this Mongolian folk metal band. Actually, they actually opened for Iron Maiden, so it's an interesting group. So that's why I actually kind of make it now a habit to actually get concert tickets to like 3 to 4 shows going forward, especially if it's bands that I've known growing up, even me specifically. So best to get them now. Well, yeah, best to get them now. So
yeah, I mean, there's certain shows that aren't suffering, but they do say that industry wide, though, it's about a 30% drop. They're probably all at the Taylor Swift concert, though.
Yeah, they love to get Swifty. So yeah. I don't know. But all jokes aside, let's try to get that back up here too. So
All right.
let's get out there and get more shows, people. So there's one can actually tie in with challenges here too. But I guess what sort of challenges do you face these days, being a musician in general?
Boy, that's a good question. I mean, you have financial challenges all the time. It's always just, doesn't matter what level of musician you are. It's, you got to scramble. We have to scramble to get gigs. And like, if we get a whole slew of cancellations like we did, all of a sudden we're scrambling to rebook dates and get other shows lined up. And thankfully it's gone pretty well. But financially, there's always challenges. Our overhead's gone up a lot in the last few years, and that's been really killer. So I'd say that's probably the biggest thing. But other than that, for where we are, we have some logistical challenges as far as talent base goes. I mean, there are musicians here, but it's not it's not like what we had in Nashville. It's kind of a different level of musicianship and a different level of player. So we kind of struggle with that a little bit. Thankfully, it's not a problem for recording. We can still get anybody we want on our recording, so that's not a problem. But if we want to go out and tour, it's hard to find people who are from here that want to tour. So sometimes we have to tour out of Nashville or LA. And just again, I mean, the really great players, there are not a lot of them, and they might be tied up or they might have a regular job, that kind of thing. And so, I'd say those are some of the biggest challenges that I face.
I did forget to ask earlier in terms of being a producer. Were you self-taught, or did you take some classes from certain schools?
I'm pretty much self-taught as a producer. I trained with some people as an engineer. When I opened my first studio in '85, I opened the room with the help of a friend who financed the studio. And part of the finance package that we put together included having a guy come in and work with me and train me how to engineer. But then I was fortunate when I went to Portland, there was another engineer there who he had engineered for some of the Northwest top bands. Quarter Flash is one of the ones he engineered for. He ended up passing away from it was kidney failure, I think it was. And that was about, well, when we met in '89, Jack Barr was his name, and Jack said, I'm going to show you all my secrets, all my engineering secrets. And he kind of took me under his wing and taught me just all kinds of amazing stuff. And then he passed away a year later. So I really felt like he passed the torch on to me. And then there was another engineer also that I worked with from the Seattle area, who was a major engineer who taught me all kinds of stuff. And then going out to Nashville, working with all kinds of major engineers and producers, I just was fortunate to be around people who were super talented, and so yeah, it kind of made it easy for me to glean and to go from there. But producing was something that was kind of natural for me. I mean, even when I was a teenager, I would go into the church that I was playing at. When nobody's around, I had a key to the church and go in, and they had a couple of cassette decks in there, or so I would set everything up, and then I we had instruments there. We had percussion instruments, bass, and of course piano and organ, right? And I'd bring my guitars and would just make my own little productions, cassette to cassette, which, for people that aren't familiar, when you're doing, it's similar to what the Beatles did in the early on, where they would, they had 4-track machines where you only recorded 2 tracks at a time. And then you would take those 2 tracks and then bounce them to the next 2 tracks while adding these parts, right? And so that's what they were doing back then. Of course, when you do that, you can do that with 2 cassette decks, but probably like by the 3rd or 4th pass, there's so much noise buildup from the tape noise that it's just this tremendous hiss that gets added to your recording. But I was into production early on, and so it was very intuitive for me.
I guess did you also mess around with analog at one point?
Yeah, I mean, everything was analog for us until, oh gosh. I started out 1-inch 16-track. That was my first studio in 1985. Then I went to 2-inch 24-track in 1988. And that it was 2-inch 24-track until, let's see, my first ADAT recording was probably 95. Yeah, I think 95. Got into ADATs, started out with the early blackface ADATs. The room I worked at on Music Row, we had Tascam DA88s. And then we upgraded from our blackface ADATs to, we ended up with the XT20 ADATs, the 20-bit ADATs. And then it wasn't until I was starting to do some hard disk recording in the late 90s, and then eventually moved to Digital Performer in the early 2000s, and then went full Pro Tools. I want to say 2006, maybe. I think it was. Yeah, and then I've just been running Pro Tools ever since.
So, you try to mess around?
What's that?
I was going to say, did you always mess around with any other DAWs, or did you just always stuck with Pro Tools? It was Pro Tools all day, every day.
Well, no, I started out with Digital Performer, which I really liked, particularly for its MIDI and stuff. And there was, I forgot, there was a studio. We moved to Portland, Oregon in '88, and then moved back to Southern Oregon. It helped open another room down there, which we had 2-inch 24-track. Had my AMEC Angela console, which was 8 feet long and it weighed 1,000 pounds. It was a 32-channel console. Wonderful analog console. It sounded amazing. But then we also, we would sync that up, and we had Cubase. I think it was Cubase early on. And so we would use a sync track, one of the tracks in analog, so that we could run MIDI tracks live. So we'd create MIDI stuff, sync it to tape. So we had all these analog, real instruments going to tape, synced with the MIDI tracks, and it was crazy. We did a lot of that back then.
And I hear an interesting story about the band Rush when they were doing their Hemispheres album, and I was thinking, for analog, there's little room for error. So it's not like nowadays where if you made a mistake, you can just, all right, we'll cut that section out and then we'll just do that part over. Now this one is you had to start over from the beginning if you had one big screw up.
Oh yeah, and I mean I've got all kinds of stories. In the analog world, you make a mistake, and I remember one of the first projects I was working on in '87. It was a band called Zion. They released a really great sounding album. And in fact, as a side note, the guy who did the album cover for that project did all the Indiana Jones concert posters or not, excuse me, not costume posters, movie posters. All those early movie posters, he had done those. And then it just so happened he was a brother of a friend of the band. And so he did this really amazing album cover for him. Zion Kraut was the name of the project. But I remember I was working on that project and I'm editing Tom tracks because, I mean, that was a great way to clean up Tom tracks. You go through and edit them, just erase them by hand, with the multi-track. And it's like, you mark them out. Okay, clean this up. And then, oh shoot, I just took out a Tom fill. There's another time I'm working on a project at our studio in downtown Portland, and I had somebody else producing, and I'm engineering, and we had been working on the studio, and so we were working on music projects in the daytime, and then at night we'd work on wiring or all kinds of other stuff, installing stuff. And then so when I'm working on these projects, it's like I'm dead tired and I'm sitting there and I'm staring at my console, and it was fairly new to me, so I'm like figuring some things out in my head while the producer's working with the artist, and producer says, okay, you got that? I'm like, oh yeah, man, I'm ready. He says, okay, yeah, go. So I hit record, play, you start the tape machine. And he goes, stop the tape machine. I'm like, what? And the singer gets mad and walks out of the vocal booth. It's like, I just erased this take that they loved and wanted to keep. And yeah, it's gone, and and the producer says, yeah, man, you just erased what she wanted to keep, and that take that she just didn't think she could re-sing, and like, oh, great. Yeah, so I mean, those kinds of things happened back in the analog days, and now it's like, oh yeah, undo.
That would have been nice. So that must have been really rough, I guess.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was more so. Was this when you just ventured out on your own?
No, I mean, I started out with my own studio in 1985, and
Okay.
I had been engineering, for a number of years at that point.
All right. So I guess I know I jump ahead here too, but in terms of advice, I guess, so what sort of advice would you give? I guess let's start first with producers. So I guess up and coming producers. So what sort of advice would you give to those people?
Well, up and coming advice for producers. The thing is, I mean, back in our day, we were inventing the wheels, right? It's like in order to do something, you had to figure it out. You had to, I was lucky to have a few mentors, but nowadays it's like, what subject would you like to know about? Just go on YouTube. It's like, man, there's everything on there. It's like, well, that would have been nice back in my day. So, the opportunities that people have now, even for learning, are just crazy. It's ridiculous. Or if you have a question, gee, I have this hum in my system. What could this be? You could go to ChatGPT and ask it, hey, I've got this hum. What? It's like, oh, your studio hum could be from a 60 cycle, ground loop or something. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't asked ChatGPT, but I'm just saying, it's like, man, the resources now are just crazy. Even the other day, I was, there's some gear that I'm thinking about putting on Reverb and selling, right? And I'm thinking, how much do I need to put this gear up for? And I asked ChatGPT, hey, how much will Reverb take from this particular sale if I sell it for this much? And it breaks it all down. It says, here's exactly what you're going to get. So it's just crazy. So yeah, I mean, I guess other than, the learning that you can do on YouTube, it's just about listening to music and broadening your own experience as far as listening goes. I know for me, I grew up in a household, it wasn't a musical household per se where there were no other musicians in my family, but at the same time, my mom's record collection, is what we now know as all the classics. I mean, everything from Frank Sinatra to Burt Bacharach to, um, gosh, I mean, you name it. You know, we had Beatles and Neil Diamond and um, what Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Um, you know, all those great records. And so I was exposed to that all the time. And that's what I was listening to growing up, you know. Then me and my friends, we were listening to stuff like Chicago or the Moody Blues. So, and the more you can listen, you know, to, you know, classics and all kinds of recordings, you know, the more it's going to help you. You know, it sort of builds up a database in your own mind of what you can do, what the possibilities are. So when you're working on a production, it's like the richer the music history in your own mind, the better chance you're going to have of going, oh, I know what to play here, or I know what to do here, that type of thing. So I don't get much in the way of like writer's block for producers, whatever you'd call that, producer's block. I don't have much of that. I constantly have ideas of what could be there.
Years of experience, I'll pay it off. So yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about that block anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess in terms of for musicians in general, from your experience as a guitar player, as well as maybe some bass and harpsichord and all that other stuff here too, I guess what sort of advice would you give to those sorts of musicians?
You know, I think, of course, you have all the training materials available on YouTube and such. Going out, getting musical experiences, obviously, that's going to be a great thing for you. Going to jams, or, you know, play in a church band or playing different types of groups. Those are all very valuable experiences. What was I thinking of? Yeah. I was thinking of something and my brain derailed. Oh, I know what I was thinking. You know, I think it's important to understand that what I find with a lot of regional musicians is their concept of great music is limited if they haven't like gone and maybe experienced really high-end musical things. So like going to really great concerts, that's a great thing. But like when you go to a town like Nashville, I mean, the level of musicianship there and the level of understanding of what great music is quite a bit different than what you experience on a regional level. Excuse me. And you see people who are so serious about their craft and they take it so seriously. And I don't know, that same level of seriousness is really rare, like I said, on a regional level. And so I think it's important for young musicians particularly to understand that there are different levels, and what you see locally, you know, is not what's out there. You know, I mean, some of the, you know, the major cities where these really high-end players are, and you see that a lot of that on YouTube, but I don't know, for some reason a lot of people still don't really grasp what that looks like on a real level until maybe you've played with great players like that. So, you know, anytime that you have an opportunity to play with, you know, really serious players, really great players, those are going to really help develop you. And the other thing is, it's important to, when you're working with those great players, you know, ask questions and listen to what they're telling you. You know, if they're saying, hey man, simplify what you're trying to play, or play in the pocket, you know, try and understand what that means. Don't just blow it off like, oh yeah, I know what it means to play in the pocket. You know, I've worked with guys who they're like, oh yeah, man, I said, you're really not playing this groove properly, like, or a song like I Keep Forgetting by Michael McDonald, which is all about the pocket and the groove. And they're like, oh yeah, man, I get it. And it's like, no, you don't really get it. And so sometimes I think it's good if somebody's telling you that, go back, record yourself and listen to yourself playing that song. And now we have the technology where you can, you've got AI separations, right? So let's say you want to work on a bass part, for example, and you can extract the bass from a song and then listen to it, and then you can play. And, one thing that separates kind of the marginal players from the really great players are the ones who can really hear that difference. Go, oh, okay, yeah, wow, I'm not playing in the pocket as much as I thought. And of course, when you see groups like it's a group from Sweden.
I mean, there's a good number of groups from Sweden, but I don't know if you're talking about a hard rock or a metal band.
No, kind of the fusion group. Oh boy, I'll think of it in a minute. But sometimes we see stuff that it's all about notes. How many notes can I play? A bazillion notes a minute, right? And there's nothing wrong with trying to develop chops so that you can play fast or play a lot of notes and that kind of thing. But if you can't play things in the pocket, all that is worthless. So really, tone and time are two of the most critical elements for that separate a marginal musician from a really great musician. Great musicians know what great tone sounds like. They know how to get their instrument sounding great, and they know where to play, and they also understand the importance of where not to play and how not to overplay and how to make even amazing things sound musical. Very high technical things be very musical. That's very important. So staying musical is really a critical skill, no matter how technical you get.
That's for sure. So, all right. Thanks so much for sharing that too. And a little bit of a fun question right here too, I guess. Wow, Nashville, did you ever do busking or actually play on the street with your guitar?
No.
No.
I don't think we ever did that. I think we thought about it, but never did. Sounds like fun, but I never did it. Never had a battery-powered rig.
I mean, I don't think it would be fun. So, but unfortunately, we live in a time where fear, you got to watch over your shoulder, that whole deal here too. You don't know if someone's going to sneak behind you and take your guitar before you know it.
I'll tell you that one thing that I did that was close enough to busking was in 2000, I released the first edition of an album that I have sort of worked on. It's been sort of my life work where I get it out every year and work on it. It's a Christmas album. It's called A Very Cool Christmas. So it's like every Christmas I get it out and I do some changes to it. It's an amazing project. It features Brian Fullen on the drums, who, again, he was Peter Frampton's drummer. Played with all kinds of great people. He's a Grammy Award-winning drummer. And then the late, great Chris Kent on bass, who toured with Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather. In fact, if you pull up videos, he was on tour with him in 2002, and it was called the Larry and Luke Tour. And Larry and Luke did an album called No Substitutions, which was a live in Japan album. And that album won a Grammy. And Chris Kent was the bass player for that. Well, Chris Kent and I go back to the Portland, Oregon days, and then we both moved to Nashville and worked together out there. So he played on that Christmas record. So he did all the bass work, and then Brian was doing the drumming. And now I forgot what was the question about that.
Well, initially started with busking, but I guess there was funny memory that came up.
So in 2000, I released that. What happened? That project got picked up by a production library. And so there was a production library version of it that went out, and the contract I had for it enabled me to release it as my own project as well, which was cool. So I took that and I played in the Hundred Oaks Mall in Nashville, Tennessee. So I had my tracks, and then I was playing guitar with my tracks in the mall. And so that was kind of a busking type of situation there. And it was a lot of fun, just, playing Christmas songs, and people just loved it. The vendors there would come and say, "Man, we just love hearing your music." And so that was a lot of fun. So that was kind of the busking thing for me. And I think I did that for a couple of years. And that was that. So that was my busking story.
Quote unquote busking. So yeah, I can see that. No, that's still cool. Actually, as soon as you said Christmas too, I feel like this wasn't one of those Mariah Carey sort of me moments, was it? So
No, and it's a jazz fusion record, or instrumental jazz record, I should say. It's smooth jazz. Yeah, that's what it is, smooth jazz.
I meant it as a joke, but I mean, most people are now posting these memes like, "Oh God, here comes Mariah Carey in the Christmas song. All I want for Christmas is you." So yeah, but cool nonetheless. It's cool nonetheless. So that's up to you, mate. I did forget to ask this question here too. I guess who was really like a big influence in terms of your guitar playing?
Overall, my number one influence has been Pat Metheny. He's my favorite artist of all time. Really love his music. Steve Howe was an influence for me early on. I was into prog rock at a pretty young age. So in my late teens, I got into Al Di Meola and Larry Carlton and Robin Ford. So those were probably my primary influences for at least my guitar playing.
And I'll bring out Kevin again, but when he was describing like his experiences in the prog rock scene, it was almost like, "Shh, we do not speak of Prague in this neck of town here too." So it was almost like it was blasphemy. Otherwise, it was almost like you had to go into the music store, get like a brown paper bag, almost like it was a secret stash. So.
Well, that's funny. Okay.
I mean, that was his point of view here too. I don't know if there was anything similar that you kind of went through. Otherwise, were your people pretty easygoing with prog rock?
The only thing is, like, none of my friends were into it, because they were listening to all the pop acts of the time, which, your Journey and your Queen and some REO Speedwagon and, kind of those pop rock bands at the time, of course, Boston and such. But if you said, "Yeah, have you ever heard Yes?" and it's like, no. Like, yeah, okay, I know that's funny, but yeah, Yes or Genesis, no, never heard of them. Moody Blues, no, not really. So there was a lot of my friends who didn't know who they were, and yet, when I went to my first Yes concert, in fact, I saw Kansas early on, and in a stadium full of people, and then Yes had back-to-back shows, and at the Oakland Coliseum that were packed out. So, they had a worldwide following of hundreds of thousands of people, and yet you could ask a lot of people on the street, like, "Do you know who they are?" And like, "No, don't have a clue." So it's kind of a weird phenomenon that way. But so I guess in that sense, I didn't know a lot of people that were into prog.
Yeah, that was actually kind of unfortunate. But one more thing about Kevin too, he actually mentioned about if you wanted to disperse a crowd, just turn on some Captain Beefheart or Frank Zappa. So apparently we unleashed a little kryptonite or something. Or in case you want to break those people who are singing the Journey song, "Don't Stop Believing" for like the millionth time.
Right.
So, that was actually the first time I heard about it too. I was just looking at it, I'm like, Captain Beefheart. I mean, it was the most oddest name I ever heard, to be honest with you too. I've heard one like from Jack Black of Tenacious D. So, okay. And for this question here too, this one can kind of tie in with like the lyrics. But I guess, did you ever write any lyrics or contribute any lyrical content for all the bands you've been a part of?
Yeah, I started writing songs when I was a teenager. For the Christian shows I did, I wrote all my own, shouldn't say all my own, but most of my own songs. Went out and performed those. Of course, for the big band, I didn't, 23-piece big band, I didn't write anything for that. Um, yeah, and then I've written a lot of original stuff, um, done original instrumental music, and then I've written a number of songs that will probably fall into the yacht rock category. I remember in 1999, I was a Taxi member back then. You're familiar with Taxi? It's a music submission company, taxi.com.
Well,
So you
it
can,
rings a bell. I'm not too sure about it. Go ahead.
yeah, it's a good connection for people trying to get their music in film and TV and some other, there's a number of opportunities that they present. And I was a Taxi member for a while, and there was a submission they were looking for, and I forget what it was about, because I mean it was 25 years ago, and I submitted this one song, and they were looking for something relatively current. Now, this is 1999, and they came out and said, "Well, gosh, this is just too Steely Dan." Too Steely Dan, and as if it was like Steely Dan is just such a has-been. Well, that year Steely Dan swept the Grammys. I mean, they had a bunch of Grammy awards that year, and I was kind of like, okay, guys,
What's your point? So yeah,
yeah,
it's like, are you reeling in the ears?
yeah, it's like, okay, well, they missed that one, anyways. So yeah, I'll be re-releasing some of that stuff soon.
That's pretty cool. I guess what normally did your lyrics like kind of delve into? Did you kind of write about personal experience, or was it kind of like what the old fashioned like classic rock was, with like love making and all that stuff?
No, well, I was going to say I haven't written. No, I did write a series of songs for my wife that were love songs. So I do have some love songs I've written, but they're not. I don't know. They're just sweet love songs. You know, titles like "What My Heart Has to Say" or that kind of stuff. But yeah, I write about philosophical topics. One song I've written was called "Fair Weather Friend." Love is not a fair weather friend. It'll stay with you until the end. It will be there when you're hungry and cold, when you feel tired and old, when success eludes you and the world gets you down. Love is a friend that will never let you down. Love knows no end because love is not a fair weather friend. There's the chorus for Fair Weather Friend. I have a song called Fresh Perspective. I just need some fresh perspective about the way life is going, fresh perspective from the way things are. I need to take my inside out and look from the outside in and get some fresh perspective right now. And that's on YouTube. You can look that one up. So that's one of the songs I've written. Of course, I've written a number of Christian songs and praise songs. I have a song called Sunday Afternoon that is, it's a song about the Emmaus Road from the Bible, which was after Jesus was crucified. Couple disciples are like totally bummed out and they're walking home on the Emmaus Road, and then they encounter Jesus. So I kind of retell that story, and kind of the catch line in that is Sunday afternoon, amazing as it seems, it was you. Let's see, I can't even think of the lyrics of it right now, but yeah, that the Emmaus Road was amazing. So that was kind of the catch line in there. I have a song called Sky Blue that is, it's kind of a pop country tune. So I'd say it's sort of Keith Urbanish a little bit. And, I did some country stuff. Of course, in Nashville, you can't do, you can't be in Nashville and not do some country stuff. So there was some country that I did there. And in fact, the original bass player and drummer for the band Lady Antebellum were our bass and drummer when we were in Nashville also. Anyway, so I've got a song called Sky Blue that tells a story about somebody who went to a city and, was there for 15 years trying to, be successful, and they, it didn't really work out for them, so they moved to the country and, lived to the simpler life. I mean, I think that story has been lived out by many people over and over. So we did a music video for that as well, and that's on YouTube. So Sky Blue. Let's see. And the chorus is Wyoming winds on the highway home, far away from city streets where the concrete meets the chrome. Wyoming winds on the highway home. Let's see. I can't think of how the rest of it goes right now off the top of my head. Then I did another song that I wrote called The Train Song, which is an acoustic blues song. And it was written, we were doing a show south of Spokane in this outdoor park and had a gazebo, and we were playing out there, and there was a set of railroad tracks going right by. And so right in the middle of our show, a train comes by, interrupts the show. And so then jokingly, I just kind of whipped off this blues tune, acoustic blues tune, made up some lyrics for it, and ended up writing a song called The Train Song. I walk along these tracks, trying to find my way home. And so we did a music video for that one, which was a heck of a lot of fun to do. We chased trains from Spokane all the way almost down to Portland. And we filmed all these train encounters, and it was incredible. It was amazing. So that's on YouTube, worth checking out. It's called The Train Song, On My Way Home, and it's a fun one. So yeah, so there's some of the songs that I've written.
He does it all. And actually, as soon as you said Sky Blue, I was thinking I got mixed up with Baby Blue, actually. And I forget which band sung it, but I know it was used in Breaking Bad on their series finale episode near the end of it.
Which song was that?
It's Baby Blue.
Oh, okay.
I forget which band sung it, but I mean, I got it mixed up with your Sky Blue. So close enough. So I can tell you what. Actually, I was real big into trains when I was a wee little lad. So I mean,
cool.
And fortunately, now I kind of don't like it when I get stopped at the train tracks because you don't know how long those trains are.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, funny enough, it's funny you had a similar situation with like a train passing by kind of interrupting the show, because I used to play college football at the school I used to go to, and right along the football field there was tracks, so the visitors always had to deal with a train passing by, kind of tooting the horn and everything there every now and again if we were winning pretty big. So, every practice there was always at least one or two always coming through. So there's a big coal mining town there too, so you could say why.
Yeah, we love college football also. In fact, there's a Division I college that's about 2 hours from us, Washington State University, and we play all the pregame shows for their home games.
Oh, that's pretty sweet. Actually, now Boise State, it would be in Boise. Okay. Because I know they've been talking mostly about that running back from Boise State who's kind of been lining it up. So
Ashton Jeanty, yeah.
Jeanty, yeah.
He's a
rocket machine, as they would say.
He's a Heisman candidate. Yeah, he's breaking all the records. He's something.
That's for sure.
I don't know if you've ever had a chance to watch him at all on some of their games, but we followed him pretty closely. Of course, he beat Washington. There was the one loss for Washington State. Washington State went 8-1, I think, and that was the one blemish, was their game against Boise State. But the guy gets 10 yards of carry, and it's like, if you can't get three guys trying to tackle him, you can't tackle him. He's just. And the thing is You see teams try and load up to try and stop him, and you can only do it for so long, and then guys are just like, oh, man, I can't keep trying to tackle this guy. He has a super low center of gravity. I think he's like one of those Brumba vacuum cleaners or something, just going across the floor. Like you can't take him out. But anyways, yeah,
how low can you go?
He's the Heisman likely for sure.
Most likely. So we'll see what happens, but keep going strong there, buddy.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, a lot of the Boise State and West Coast teams always come on a little late. Plus, I do work a second job, so unfortunately, I'm pretty beat coming home.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, that would make sense.
As well as also like doing any sort of editing and anything else. So it is what it is. But I'm happy they're doing well out there. So always did respect the Broncos when they did the Statue of Liberty play way back in the day against the Oklahoma Sooners. The Fiesta Bowl, that's what it was. 2006, I think.
Wow.
So, it was fun. That was some fun shit. I think that's when they put Boise State on the map because of that too. So
yeah.
I want to make sure I didn't miss anything. Just real quick about the gear. I guess, did you start off real small and then kind of work your way up whenever you first started getting into studio production?
Yeah. Like I said, I was doing cassette-to-cassette recordings, and then I graduated to a reel-to-reel 4-track. And the first one that, and I didn't have my own. Somebody loaned me one to use. Excuse me. And the first one that I used was one of those machines where you record 2 tracks and then you bounce those 2 tracks on another set of tracks while you play the next parts, And there were no punch-ins or anything for that. I mean, it's just like one take and that's what you do. And then somebody else loaned me a 4-track machine where you could actually record each track individually. And I was like, wow, this is amazing, And then they came out with Porta Studios, so I had a Tascam Porta Studio. I remember we dropped $1,300 on it back in 1984. I mean, it was a sacrifice, So that little Porta Studio, that was my first rig, and then with the help of my good friend Steve, we put together a 16-track studio, and that was 1-inch 16-track, and then went to 2-inch, like I said, 2-inch 24, and then Tascam D88s and ADATs, and then hard disk recording. So yeah, all the formats.
I'll try to figure out some of the stuff behind you there too, because it looks like a couple mic stands. And is there? Guess what else you got back there?
Oh, let's see what I got here. Let's see if I can see my rack at all. Can you see that rack? See, I've got a little Pro Tools M-Box here that's tied to my PowerBook, which is what I'm using to talk to you. But I also have my main rig is a Pro Tools HD rig, and then I've got, I don't know, I'm not sure, I can't see very well what you're seeing here. Let me see if I can make this bigger. No, it doesn't make it bigger. Makes you bigger, but make me bigger. So like there's I'll put some lights on here so you can see. There we go. So yeah, I've got 3 analog racks. I've got Manley API, George Maschenberg Labs, which is GML, probably one of my favorite preamps. Some Neve tape emulators. In fact, I have an ADAT machine down below. You probably can't see that. I've got Avalon and a Crane Song compressor, Manley Massive Passive for mastering. And then for the converters, I've got a Prism Titan converter. That's my main one. And then I've also got a set of Apogee converters that go into, that's a Shadow Hills Equinox, which is both a summing mixer, and it's my monitor controller, and it's also a tube preamp at the same time. So there's that. Let's see if I can I'm going to move this out of the way here. And I've got a Tascam DM 3200 over there. And then on this side, we've got
Whip out the keyboard.
a couple keyboards. In fact, this is Mod X here, and then this here, very vintage, Roland JX10 analog synthesizer, which I love. I need to get it reconditioned. In fact, I finally found somebody who I think can recondition it, because I love this keyboard, and I love everything about it. And it's so old, as I play through, there's a couple of keys that will, like, their touch sensitivity doesn't work anymore. They're like either full blast or nothing, So, and then some of the buttons don't work too well on it anymore. Then I've got a rack of synths here that I can't really turn this around to see, but I've got like a Korg Triton, and I've got a Yamaha TX802 and an old Roland drum module, which I don't use much anymore because, drum plugins have got pretty good. And then typically we have another room downstairs that we use for recording, but for some of the vocal stuff we've been doing, we do it right here, especially, for writing parts. Bridget, my daughter, she'll either sing or engineer. So we take turns, because she's an alto and I'm a tenor. So we can cover the full range that way. And so it's like, okay, we come up with some parts. Okay, that I'll sing those parts. And then, oh, here's some higher parts. Okay, we're going to have you sing those parts. So then I sit down and engineer, and she goes over and sings. And we just go back and forth like that. So we've got, I don't know if you can see this, but this is that's got it covered up. AKG C12 here, and then this is a, you can see this. It's a Loudon Oceanus, which I don't know if they make the Oceanus anymore, but it's a killer tube mic. So we have a pair of tube mics. The Oceanus sounds really great on her voice, and the C12 sounds great on my voice. And it's not like we can't use the other microphones, but we find that, those are the ones that we like best on each other's voice. Her voice sounds better on the Oceanus, me on the C12. So, yeah, then over here, let's see, I wonder if I can see if I can spin this around a little bit. I don't know if I can do this.
Gonna say, you spin me round and round, round, round. Sounds like it.
See if I'm going to try and turn this around.
I was say, this is almost like a movie studio here.
So,
what do you know?
Yeah, so monitoring setup. I've got Focals are my main monitors there. Forget which model they are. Focal monitors, and then I've got KRK monitors, and then I've got a set of Genel X up there, the old 1031As that I've had forever. And then I have SVS subwoofers. I've got a pair of stereo subwoofers tied to the Focals, and then I've got a mono subwoofer tied to the Genel X, and then I've got another subwoofer that I use for some real small speakers, and then we get all the way down to the JBL computer speakers.
So that was a coffee mug at first.
Yeah, so that way I can get a full array of, I can test my mixes and masters on everything, and I feel like that's important. Be able to try them on all kinds of different systems, and so that's what I have. So and then we're testing out a new. If you can see that, the Arc Studio. IK Multimedia Arc Studio Advanced Room Correction System. So we're trying that out. Not that I really felt like I needed it, because I really like the way this room is translating right now, but we'll see. See how it turns out. I'm kind of excited about it. I feel like it's got potential.
As every musicians, we like to improvise. So,
that's right.
Absolutely. That's a damn good setup there too. So I think Kevin's got some competition. So. Sorry, Kevin. Looks like Michael here's got you in terms of competition here. So you have to play a lot of catch up. So
yeah, I like. Like I said, I'm very happy with the sound we've been getting out of this room. You can see I've got acoustical treatments all over the place, and I've got hand-built diffusers back here. They're kind of covered up by the black screen because we were doing some videotaping. So we have some videos we did for One Street Over that are online that were done in the studio. And so if somebody goes to One Street Over and checks those out, they'll go, oh, yeah, that was done right there in their studio. Yeah, we just put a camera here, and that's our backdrop. If I remove that, there's oh, shoot, now I got to show you. Huh?
It's not the door that leads outside, does it?
No, this is amplifiers.
Ooh, look at that.
See that?
I can see it.
Yeah.
Just part of it, at least. I think they don't want to move it anymore, otherwise it's going to bring the whole thing down.
So it's I've got a custom boutique amplifiers that I have a couple different ones that were made specifically for me, and I have a Fuchs endorsement, so I've got a Fuchs amplifier, and got another Glassworks there, and over there is another pile of amplifiers, 65 amps, and I've got a Plexi clone, and also I got over there other speaker cabinets, and then, like I said, downstairs I've got the two Hammonds, and then my guitars are over there, including my custom guitars. I guess I should have brought one of those up. Might have to bring one of those up for you. I have a custom line of guitars. It's Michael Lewis guitars, and where we made a batch of them, and that's it. We made one batch of them. So maybe we will make more at some point, but right now that's all we made. But they're pretty cool.
Chop down a good number of trees then. So there. This is pretty cool, actually. Just real quick, I guess all these other brands, I guess you're a part of. They reach out to you, or do you reach out to them to see, like, hey, I'll be a little sponsor and everything?
It's a little bit of both. Excuse me. Fuchs, I courted early on, because I was, I've been a fan of the Dumble sound. I mean, being a Larry Carlton fan, being a Robin Ford fan, I mean, you got to be into Dumble tones, right, for that. And that was definitely my thing. And so then I found out about Fuchs making a Dumble style amplifier. And so I went up and I met him and I tried out his amps, and I said, man, I'd be really interested in endorsing these, and it was pretty early on. So he was like, yeah, okay, cool. So then we've worked together. I worked with him and with one of his other guys, Scott Lerner, who was influential in the voicing. I kind of worked with them as giving a lot of input to, hey, can we make it more like this or do more like that and so on. And then I ended up selling Fuchs amplifiers for a while out of Nashville. And for a while there, I was probably their top salesman for their amplifiers. So if you go to my, it's Michael Lewis Music YouTube page, there's a couple of videos on there. And I also have a Radical Tone video page and Michael Lewis Guitars, where there's some videos there. There's just a stack of Fuchs amps behind me because, I was carrying Fuchs amps and then carrying and using a lot of Fuchs amps at the time. So that was kind of fun. Keeley, I don't remember if they asked me or if I asked them for Keeley. Let's see. Elixir endorsed Elixir strings for a while, and that was, I met them at the NAMM show and talked to them, and they gave me an endorsement. Back then I was touring with a Curb artist at the time. There's a company here in North Idaho called Harvey Pedals. They make some really killer, what do I say? They got one, what's the name of that? Hold on.
Gonna drive them crazy now. It's one of those situations.
Centauri, which is it's an original, it's a clone of the Klon Centauri pedal. So it's the Harvey Centauri, it's a killer sounding pedal. And then they've also got a Noble Tone, which I think is it's either a clone of like the Prince of Tone or what is it, the King of Tone, one of those. I think that's what it is. Also great sounding pedal. And then they have a Big Muff clone that sounds amazing. And so, I found out they were close, and they said, hey, we'd be interested in having you as an endorser. So it's kind of been a combination. When I was making my guitar line, there was some interest from some companies, because I was building this guitar line. So there was that too.
That's good to hear. Yeah. But hey, life's a journey. It actually pulls you in very numerous directions here too. So I mean,
oh, definitely.
In your case, I went from just doing studio work to actually now making your own line of guitars and then being an endorser for these sorts of guys.
Yeah.
So, hey, in which case, nice little golf tap for you. Hey, congrats there, buddy. So keep doing what you're doing. So, right.
Yeah.
So Michael, we appreciate the questions here. Pretty good. Let's get into the fun ones here. Ready?
Okay.
All right. This ought to be interesting. So I think, funny enough, they say food tastes always seem to change every 7 years. So I guess, what is currently your favorite food?
Well, it's pretty easy because I'm a musician. Pizza. I don't know, for every 7 years, my love for pizza has continued to be renewed. Like a long-standing contract. So yeah, I still like pizza a lot. I like Mexican enchiladas. I do protein waffles for breakfast. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to feed in that way.
I was going to say, what were you drinking there? Was that like a coffee or something?
I don't do coffee, but I did do a glass of hot chocolate. So yeah.
Jump ahead here, I guess. Would you say that? Is that your favorite non-alcoholic drink? And do you drink any alcohol?
I do not drink alcohol. My favorite non-alcoholic drink is probably natural ginger ale, which, being a starving musician, I can't afford very often.
Was it the Canada Dry?
No, no. Gosh, who is it? I'm gonna look it up. It's not Kemper. What's the name of that? Reed's. That's what it is. Reed's ginger ale.
That was good. Okay.
Yeah, I really like that stuff. So, like natural sodas, I mean, those are great. We drink Izzy's. liquid IV, great for hydrating. But yeah, I'm a non-alcoholic guy.
That's good. Let's just stay away from that. I was gonna say, were you guilty of that way back in the day, or did you always stay clear of it?
Uh, my grandmother was an alcoholic, and so she came to live with us when I was pretty small. And I mean, man, uh, speak about having an experience for like, I never want to be like that ever. So, it's like I remember as a kid opening up one of my dresser drawers and she had hidden a bottle of booze in there, and it stunk, and it's like, man, I want no part of this. So I was pretty turned off to alcohol from a really young age, thankfully, and I have no regrets about that. But my wife was also non-alcoholic when we met. Neither one of us had ever really gotten into drinking. And I mean, occasionally we tried to say, oh, let's have a glass of wine, but it was okay to try, and that's fine for some people, but it just, it wasn't for us, not what we wanted to do. And so, yeah.
Is that good thinking? All right. Yeah, but that's up to you to stay away from that too. I know the temptation is normally there for a lot of people. So
yeah,
good job. For next one, I guess, what would you say is your favorite movie of yours? And if you have a favorite TV series that you'd like to share, go ahead.
Oh, let's start off with a TV series. I really like the Blue Bloods, like on their 14th season now.
Tom Selleck's still going strong in the 70s.
Yeah, it's amazing. In fact, we watched it last night. Just amazing series.
Hogan's Heroes?
Hogan's Heroes. I have the entire set on DVD. Oh, early throwback 60s TV series, Wild Wild West back then. For movies, I'm a little bit of a softie, so I really like the Parent Trap 2. It's probably one of my favorites.
There was actually a second one of that one?
Yeah.
There was just one Parent Trap.
No, there was the one that was like from the 60s. And then they did the remake with Lindsay Lohan. It's a great movie. Mm-hmm. Love it. And then You've Got Mail. I enjoy watching that one with my wife. And more recently, Top Gun Maverick 2 is, I think, a favorite here.
The Tom Cruise reignited his role in the Maverick. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's great. And they're coming out with a new one next year.
That's ought to be interesting. So hopefully it's not doing more than they could chew. So
yeah, who knows? Top Gun 3, but I don't know. Tom Cruise movies, man, they're amazing. Like the Mission Impossible series and the Jack Reacher stuff. It's pretty brutal, but
intense. Yeah,
yeah, it's real intense, but it's kind of fun,
Actually, I remember my parents told me about the original Mission Impossible. I guess whoever were the actors in it, but it was a TV series, not a movie series.
Right.
So I actually do remember them showing me a couple episodes of it. It actually looked pretty good. So.
Yeah. And then for years, my family watched Walker, Texas Ranger. We like that, Chuck Norris. And then when I was studying Taekwondo in Southern Oregon, I went to a dojo, and first time we went there, see this guy, and he's got his hair cut like Chuck Norris, and it's like, what is up with this guy? He's like a total Chuck Norris wannabe. Well, come to find out, he's Chuck Norris's stuntman. And what's really something is Chuck Norris, I think, was a 7-time champion, I think. And I think his stuntman, which is, oh gosh, I can't remember his name. It's been years since thank you. Chip Wright. Chip Wright.
He's dropping on it, yeah.
Yeah. Chip Wright actually racked up more accolades than Chuck Norris. So, and they were both, I mean, Chip and Chuck, Chuck Norris, Chip Wright. These two guys, I mean, they were like clones. It's amazing. And I mean, the skill set, and Chip Wright is just the most wonderful, nice guy you could ever meet. And we were fortunate to study with him for a little while. And I mean, he's like, you could be a beginner and he just give you everything. And here's this, I don't know, 7-degree black belt or something, and multi-time world champion Taekwondo dude. And he's just a sweetheart of a guy, just wonderful. So, anyways, that's kind of a fun story. So we enjoyed the watching Walker, Texas Ranger, and then knowing Chip Wright. It was very easy for me to tell when they would switch, and it was Chip doing the stuff, because as Chuck got a little older, they'd have Chip step in and do the really high technical stuff, because they didn't want to risk Chuck getting injured, And you'd see his hair was just a little different, and Chip Wright was actually beefier build. He worked out. He was super muscular dude, and so you could see it when they switched out. Go, oh, there's Chip. That's cool.
I don't know about that, but man, that's an interesting story. If only you had an iPhone at the time. So.
Yeah, no, that was. Let's see, it would have been 94. I think, 94, 93, 94. I was in Southern Oregon and studying martial arts back then.
Yeah. All right. Cool story. And actually great choices there nonetheless. So, and for last fun questions, here's what I'll do with this one. List one of your songs you would consider your favorite in the mainstream world. And if you got one from the independent indie community, go ahead.
Oh, boy. Mainstream and independent. Well, trying to think if I have any current favorites. I kind of like some of the Harry Styles stuff. Harry Styles, I think it's pretty cool. Like some of that stuff. And we play some of that stuff in One Street Over. We'll do some One Republic tunes on One Street Over. I think if I really talk about favorite songs, I'm going to go back to like Heart to Heart by Kenny Loggins is one of my favorites from the yacht rock era. If I talk prog, Awaken by Yes from the Going for the One album. And I remember one of the other albums I was thinking about that people need to check out was Relayer. Yes, Relayer. That's definitely an album you got to check out. And then my favorite Pat Metheny song is The Gathering Sky from the Speaking of Now project. So that's some of
my list. So yeah. Yeah. No, that's actually pretty cool there too. It's always interesting what you learn from these interviews here too, especially when it comes to like favorite songs. So, all right, great choices there. All right. So, Michael, we are down to one more question in my podcast right here. I guess before we jump into it, would you like to ask me any questions or say any final words before we jump into it?
Well, thanks for having me on here. I appreciate it. It's always fun to talk about music, and sounds like you have a cool podcast, and you came up with a great set of questions. So
I try.
A lot of fun.
And like I said, special shout out and thanks to Kevin Dotson for making this happen here too. Actually, he gave me your email, so that's how I was able to reach out. So
yeah, very cool. Yeah, and thanks to Kevin as well for having me. Oh yeah, definitely Trekkie. And see, and I forgot that. Yeah, we're big Star Trek fans here, so definitely.
Beat me up, Scotty.
Yeah, Monty Python fans as well. I think Monty Python and prog rock go together very well. So
I'll explain the Captain Beef part.
Yeah, so I appreciate Kevin, getting me in touch with you and being on here. That's great.
Thank you. Thank you.
So how long have you been doing this podcast?
Oh, we came with a question at the last second. There. Actually, I've been doing it. Let's see. 2021 was actually when I did start right there, because I had actually started my YouTube channel a little earlier in like 2020, but that was like just doing drum covers. So I'm just more strictly a drummer, but I do some vocals every now and again. It's just a little small project I've been doing with some friends of mine in the indie community. And started about 2020, I'm going to say February of 2021. And then that's when the podcast started. And then it's going to be 4 years come next February.
Oh, wow. That's great. So are you mostly a studio guy or a live guy or just a mixture of both?
I would like to try a mixture of both, but it's mostly just been studio. So
Okay.
So I could say I'm like a metal Steely Dan in a way.
A metal Steely Dan. Okay. So, yeah, like
Nice.
Iron Maiden meets Asia, right?
Let's go a lot heavier. So,
Okay.
you remember when we were talking earlier about the bass scene, when it starts getting into thrash, that sort of stuff. Let's say we take it up a extra down tune or something like that. So,
Okay. You like Dream Theater?
I've heard of Dream Theater, and I've actually listened to a few of their songs. I actually did a drum cover of Pull Me Under. I actually did a collab with a friend of mine, too. Hardest album, I'm not going to lie. That one really had to concentrate. Like port noise, pretty insane.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, we had an invitation to go to a Dream Theater concert and hang out backstage and meet all those guys, and so that was a lot of fun. That's probably the hardest concert that I've ever been to, and I'm like, wow, the volume is insane. I'm like, where's my gun muffs? I really need it. Being a sound engineer, it's like, my protect my hearing. I mean, I have a pair of earplugs in the pocket of every pair of pants that I wear. So, I mean, earplugs.
Actually, been mine to use for the first time when I went to Iron Maiden. It was it's one of those ones you put in and then you're able to twist it.
Yeah.
So you're not like jamming it into your ears. So
yeah. So there's these. This is I like these a lot, and I literally keep a set of these with me all the time, so that if there's any type of noise or anything, I just pop them in. Somebody wants to put on a blender, put them in. But the concert was really cool, but man, I'm not a high volume guy like that.
let's crank up the volume. Huh? You probably would have hated Motorhead, and those guys came out in the 80s from the British scene. So
No doubt, yeah.
that was Lemmy. I love it loud. Just jamming that bass too.
But I think concerts have gotten louder over the years.
I think my dad said that was deliberate because I think it starts off at a good volume, because that's how it was with Iron Maiden. It started off at a good volume. And as the show kept going on, the volume kept going up. So my dad seems to think that's normal.
Yeah, that's probably what they do. Yeah.
Hey, we're not complaining. We love the noise.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I see. What does your shirt say?
Well, this is Megadeth.
All right.
One of the area thrashes. Inventioning band.
Yeah. Hoping we're going to make these shirts available soon.
It'd be nice. That's pretty cool. Now, was there anything else?
No, that was it. You said you had one more question.
Yes, I did. All right. If there's nothing else, here's how the last question goes. So, given what COVID's done, obviously, it seems you were pretty blessed, even though you had some shows canceled, and even though you kind of got a little sick too of also your little side job, we should say, doing like ski instruction and all that stuff. But for those people and musicians who've been impacted by COVID or anything else in their lives, like an addiction, something along those lines, what sort of message of hope can you give to those people as they try to move forward with their lives?
What kind of message of hope would I give? Well, I mean, we're we're in different times now. We're in a different age, and I think there's some viable things that you can take to, if you get sick, there's ivermectin. That's a very effective treatment for COVID, and I think people have learned how to maintain their health better. And like I said, I mean, it's different times. We've kind of moved on from that, and I think things are going to get better. I think life's going to get better, so I'm optimistic.
Well, you are indeed a trooper, and spoken like a true prodigy. Yeah. So, Michael, we've reached the end of my podcast right here. We're just shy of about 2 hours, but would you like to say any final words? Want to give any shout outs before we close?
Well, appreciate Kevin again, and thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it, and I always enjoy sharing music stories and talking about music and gear and our passion for it, and I'm grateful to have had such a long career in the music industry and to be able to continue to play live shows and continue to record. It's I feel very very blessed and grateful that I've had a long career in the music industry. So and shout outs got to go to my family, my wife. We've been married for this is our 40th year now. So we've been married for 40 years, and she has hung with me all these years and put up with touring. And recent years, we're gone a lot. My cat doesn't like that. She's not here right now, but my cat can't stand it. Every time we go out the door, she'll tries to pack herself in my suitcase and all kinds of stuff. She really wants to go with us, so maybe someday she will. And then, of course, my daughter Bridget, vocalist for One Street Over in the Inventioning band. Definitely give her a listen. She's got a great cover of Whitney Houston on the One Street Over page. And then my son Jordan is our keyboardist. He actually did the videotaping for a lot of our videos, like the train song, Sky Blue. We did the Chris Squire cover Onward, the song Onward, which we filmed on the Oregon coast at lighthouses all along the Oregon coast. And so people want to check out that music video. It's really, it's a beautiful music video, and he filmed that one. So now he plays keyboards with us. And so these guys are my team. They're my support. And so, yeah.
They're your Brady bunch. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're the Partridge family here, so that's a shout out to them for sure.
That's great to hear. Just real quick for the audience, can you just list what social media you guys are on, as well as streaming platforms?
Yeah, we, of course, YouTube, One Street Over on YouTube. If you go to One Street Over Official on YouTube, that's not us, somebody else's. It's like a Celtic folk band. I've asked them to change their name. They ignore me. We have onestreetover.com is the website for One Street Over. We're also on Facebook. So Facebook, YouTube, Twitter are all One Street Over. Let's see. Inventioning Band is also on YouTube. It's Inventioning. Facebook, Inventioning. We don't really have a website set up for Inventioning right now. Maybe we'll get to that eventually. Then our new band, which is yacht rock specific, is called Legends of Yacht, and that's on Facebook right now. So people can go and follow that page on Facebook. If you're a yacht rock fan, you can go to Yacht Rock World, which is our yacht rock page for yacht rock fans. In fact, they're dropping a new documentary on yacht rock, like in the next week, I think. So that's kind of cool. Radical Tone on YouTube. Also, we have a Facebook, Radical Tone, which is all about boutique gear, amps, pedals, guitars. Michael Lewis Guitars on Facebook, Michael Lewis Guitars on YouTube, Michael Lewis Music on YouTube, which is kind of more jazz-centric, but has a lot of my original stuff on there. And Reverbnation, One Street Over, Reverbnation Inventioning, Reverbnation, Michael Lewis. Actually, on Reverbnation, it's just Michael Lewis, not Michael Lewis Music. Excuse me. And Radical Tone on Reverbnation. And we got all kinds of music on there, all kinds of videos. And on some of the pages, we have playlists of other projects we've been involved with, such as the Madrigal Project. And, I've been part of over 70 albums, so a lot of that stuff is on there. You could sit around and bore yourself listening to my music for days. But anyway, so those are the social media links for us.
I was like, that was quite an extensive catalog right there. So, actually, what I found, it just says Michael Lewis on YouTube. So, you got at least a new subscriber on there. So,
great. So, yeah, that's Michael Lewis Music on YouTube, right?
I think so. So, it's one of those ones. But either or, you still got the subscriber. So, that's all that matters. So,
if it's just Michael Lewis, I don't know who that would be on YouTube, because I'm not Michael Lewis on YouTube. Unfortunately, I'm Michael Lewis Music, but that's okay.
I mean, it did list everything. It had Radical Tone and everything. So, unless someone's impersonating you. So,
there you go. Unless somebody cloned my site. I don't know.
You never know.
Yeah.
But to close out like this, everyone, my guest today was Mr. Michael Lewis, hailing from the lovely state of Idaho right there. He's got quite an extensive resume and everything here too, but just to kind of break it down, session musician, producer, as well as member, as well as co-founder and founder of bands Inventioning Band and One Street Over. So make sure you go hit up on social media platforms and everything. Go hit up on all streaming platforms as well here too. Sparrow's done a lot for us here too. Let's go back and support him here too for all the work he's done. So, Michael, I wish you all the best going forward there, mate. So good luck for any shows you got coming up here. So hopefully you can come out here to Pittsburgh one of these days. So we'll see what happens.
We'll look forward to that.
Please stay safe and God bless you, mate. So do that and rock on.
All right.
Stay tuned, y'all.
God bless you too, man. Take care, and thanks so much for having me.
All right. But real quick, we need a pose.